All right, so let's dive into something I'm sure everyone listening has thought about at least once or twice, or maybe a lot, personal finance.
Hmm?
And specifically today, we're going to be looking at Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Big title.
It is a big title. I mean, will he really teach us to be rich? We're going to see if this book lives up to the hype.
We'll find out.
So we've got the book, and we've got a whole bunch of stories from readers who have actually used the advice in this book and their results.
That
And
success story.
yeah, and Sethi's got some pretty no-nonsense advice.
Straight to the point.
Yeah. So our mission today is to help equip you, the listener, with some tools and some knowledge to make smarter money moves.
Yeah.
Whether you're just starting out or, you've been investing for a while and consider yourself pretty savvy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I think, about this book is Sethi doesn't just kind of throw theory at you.
Mm.
He's got a lot of real-world examples. So he talks about people like Rena Bonsali, who used his advice in the book, and she was able to pay off $40,000 of debt.
Yeah.
And at the same time, built $200,000 in savings.
That's incredible.
I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And it's not just people who are, buried in debt who find success with this book. He's got another example, Alex Craig, who was a retail worker. And by using these principles, he was able to end up with almost $200,000 in assets.
Yeah. I mean, those are some pretty everyday people who have managed to make some pretty big transformations to their finances.
Absolutely. And it just shows that this isn't some kind of get-rich-quick scheme. It's like a practical system
Yeah.
that you can use to really improve your money situation.
So let's jump into the content then. And one of the first things that Sethi talks about is this concept of beating the banks.
Okay.
So I think a lot of us, we just stick with whatever bank we've had, since we were a kid or, whatever.
Yeah.
But Seffi's like, no, there's a better way.
Mm.
And he really advocates for finding these accounts that give you high interest, but that also don't charge you an arm and a leg in fees.
Yeah, like nickel and diming you.
Right, exactly. So he talks about places like Ali Bank or Capital One 360. And these online banks often have rates that are way better than you'd get at your typical brick and mortar bank.
Yeah, the big banks.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is he doesn't just say go find a better account. He actually gives you the tools to do it. So for example, he includes a script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like an actual script that you can use when you go to your bank to help you negotiate away those fees.
It's like a secret weapon you can take with you.
It is like a secret weapon. I love that. And, he even talks about, don't be afraid to, ask to speak to a manager or be a little bit bold in how you approach it to try to get that leverage.
So you're not just accepting what they give you.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just about getting a higher interest rate. He also is a big advocate for having separate savings accounts.
Oh.
So I'll admit, I used to just have like one giant pot of money for savings.
Yes, one.
But he makes a really good point that you should actually separate out your savings so you have like an emergency fund,
Right.
a vacation fund, a down payment fund, and so on.
So you're not tempted to just dip into it whenever.
Right, exactly. And it's about being strategic with your money. He also warns against things like those minimum balance requirements that some banks have.
Oh, yeah. Those can really eat into your returns.
Yeah, because that money's just sitting there, and it's not really growing as much as it could be if it were in a higher interest account.
It's like leaving money on the table.
It is like leaving money on the table. So Sethi's all about making that money work harder for you.
Yeah.
Which brings us to his next big idea, getting ready to invest.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Sethi believes that anyone, even if you only have $50 to spare, can and should start building wealth.
Okay, so he's not talking about, having to have thousands of dollars to start.
No, not at all.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he introduces this concept called the ladder of personal finance.
Okay, a ladder, so like steps we got to climb.
Yeah, it's like a step-by-step guide to financial success.
Okay, so tell me about this ladder. What are the rungs we got to climb?
Well, the first rung is all about mastering your 401k.
Okay.
So he stresses the importance of contributing enough to get that full employer match.
Oh, yeah. That's like free money, right?
It's like getting an instant return on your investment.
Yeah, you got to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's step one. What's next?
So once you've got that sorted, the next step is to crush your debt.
Okay, so we're talking credit cards, student loans, anything with like a high interest rate.
Exactly. He provides a ton of tips for paying down debt strategically, whether it's the snowball method or the avalanche method.
I've heard of those.
Yeah. And he also talks about negotiating with your creditors to try to get a lower interest rate.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so you can pay it off faster.
Okay, so you've climbed the 401k rung. You've slayed the debt monster.
You're making progress.
All right, so what's the third rung on this ladder?
The third rung is all about leveraging the power of Roth IRAs.
Okay, I've heard of Roth IRAs, but I'll admit I'm not entirely sure what they are.
So a Roth IRA is basically a retirement account where you contribute after-tax dollars.
Okay.
But then all of your earnings grow tax-free,
Yeah.
and when you retire, you don't have to pay taxes on your withdrawals.
Oh, wow. So it's like a double tax advantage.
Exactly. It's a pretty sweet deal. And Sethi is a huge advocate for starting early with investing. And he illustrates this point with a really memorable example.
Oh, okay. Lay on me.
He introduces us to Smart Sally, who starts investing small amounts in her 20s,
Oh, okay.
and then Dumb Dan, who waits until later in life to start.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here.
So even though Sally invests less overall, she ends up with significantly higher returns.
Really?
Yeah, because of the magic of compound growth.
That's that thing where your money makes money and then that money makes more money, right?
Exactly. It snowballs over time.
Okay.
Dan, on the other hand, he misses out on all those early years of compounding, so he ends up having to invest way more just to catch up.
So the moral of the story is start early, even if it's a small amount.
Exactly. Time is your greatest asset when it comes to investing.
I like that.
The sooner you start, the better. And this leads us perfectly into Sethi's philosophy of conscious spending.
Conscious spending. Okay. I'm intrigued.
So it's not about deprivation or penny pinching.
Okay.
It's about making sure that your money is aligning with your values.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in practice?
So Sethi breaks it down into 4 buckets. You've got your fixed costs.
Okay.
Those are your non-negotiables like rent and utilities.
Right, the essentials.
Then you've got investments like your 401k and Roth IRA contributions.
Got it. Those are important.
Yeah. Then you've got savings goals like a down payment on a house or a dream vacation.
Oh, yeah, the fun stuff.
Exactly. And then finally you have guilt-free spending money.
Okay, now we're talking.
And Sethi's not saying you can't enjoy life. In fact, he encourages you to spend extravagantly on the things you love,
Really? Yeah.
but to cut ruthlessly on the things you don't.
So if you're a foodie, go all out on those amazing meals, but maybe cut back on those subscription boxes you never actually use.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with your money and making choices that align with your priorities.
Okay.
And he even suggests allocating a specific percentage of your income to each of those buckets.
So we're not just winging it, we're actually like creating a budget.
Right, exactly. It's about creating a system that makes sure you're covering your needs, planning for the future, and still enjoying the present.
I love that. It's not about deprivation. It's about making sure your money is working for you, not against you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about beating the banks. We've talked about investing wisely. Let's move on to something that sounds almost too good to be true. Automating your finances.
This is where Sethi really shines. He's all about setting up systems that take the stress out of money management.
Okay.
He calls it automatic money flow. And it's basically putting your finances on autopilot.
So instead of like manually transferring money every month, you set it up once and then it just happened.
Exactly. You can automate your bill payments, your savings contributions, even your investments.
Wow.
It takes the guesswork out of it. I have to admit, I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to my money.
Yeah.
But even I can see the appeal of this. You know, you're like setting up a system and then it just takes care of itself.
Right. It simplifies your life and makes sure your money is flowing in the right direction.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, another thing that Sethi talks about that I think is really interesting is he says, you know, you don't have to just rely on those financial experts out there.
Yeah.
He wants us to become our own investment experts.
And that might sound intimidating at first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Wall Street wizard or anything.
But that's exactly Sethi's point. You don't need a fancy degree or years of experience to make smart decisions. He wants to pull back the curtain on the financial industry and kind of expose some of the common myths that keep people from investing.
Okay, so like what kind of myths are we talking about?
Well, one big one is this idea of survivorship bias.
Survivorship bias.
It's basically the tendency to focus on the investments that have done well while ignoring the ones that have failed.
Oh, so like we see those impressive performance reports and think, wow, this fund always goes up, but we don't see all the funds that crashed and burned along the way.
Exactly. It creates this distorted view of reality. He also talks about how those fancy, actively managed funds often underperform the market even after you factor in their high fees.
Okay.
He suggests that for most people, simple, low-cost index funds and target date funds are the way to go.
And what's the thinking behind that?
Well, index funds basically track a specific market index, like the S&P 500. So you're essentially buying a tiny piece of all the companies in that index.
Oh,
It's a diversified approach that's
Mhm.
designed for long-term growth.
Okay, so you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And target date funds are even easier. You just choose a fund based on your estimated retirement date,
Hmm.
and it automatically adjusts its asset allocation as you get closer to retirement.
So it's like having a personal investment manager in a box.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it.
That's cool.
And the best part is these funds typically have very low fees.
Which means more money in your pocket.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's all about making those informed choices and not just blindly following the advice of those so-called experts.
Right.
Okay, so now let's tackle something that can be a little bit nerve-wracking. Negotiating your salary.
Yes, the dreaded salary negotiation.
But Sethi has a really refreshing take on this.
Yeah, tell me.
He says, don't think of it as a battle. Think of it as a collaborative conversation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's not about demanding more money. It's about finding a solution that benefits both you and your employer.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and he gives a ton of advice about how to research comparable salaries, how to articulate your achievements, and he even gives a sample script to help you practice.
It's like having a coach in your corner.
It is, and he emphasizes the importance of being prepared, knowing your worth and being able to effectively communicate it.
Yeah.
And he even says, think like a consultant.
Oh, what does that mean?
So instead of saying, I deserve a raise, frame it as, here's how my contributions have positively impacted the company.
Oh, I see.
So you're really focusing on the value that you bring.
It's a much more compelling argument.
Exactly. And I think that brings us to, one of the things that I think is most appealing about Sethi's philosophy, this idea of the rich life.
Yeah, it's not just about financial wealth.
No, it's about so much more than that. It's about relationships, experiences, personal fulfillment.
It's about creating a life that you love.
Exactly. And, I think it can be a bit of an abstract concept, but Sethi gives some really practical advice.
Like what kind of advice?
Well, he talks about managing finances in relationships, how to be prepared for unexpected income, and even how to make conscious choices about those big purchases like a car or a house.
So it's about having a holistic view of your life.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that money is a tool that you can use to build that life.
I like that framing. It's not about money for money's sake. It's
Right.
about using money to achieve your goals and create a life that aligns with your values.
Exactly. Welcome back to our deep dive into Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Yes.
So in part one, we laid some of the groundwork. We talked about finding high-interest savings accounts,
Right.
getting started early with investments.
Yeah.
Now let's get into some of the more nuanced advice that Sethi offers.
Okay. Sounds good.
What I find particularly interesting is how Sethi talks about those unexpected financial things that just kind of pop up in life.
Yeah, those curveballs that life throws at you.
Exactly. So he talks about surprise expenses,
Right.
but he also talks about surprise income.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and his approach is, I think, surprisingly balanced.
Okay, how so?
Well, when you get a tax refund or a bonus or even a gift,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would just automatically either put that towards debt or, put it into savings.
Yeah, just kind of squirrel it away.
Right, or feel guilty about spending it on something fun.
Mm.
But Sethi actually has a more, I think, fun approach.
Okay, tell me.
So he says when you get that unexpected income, split it in half, 50% goes straight to your investment account.
Yeah.
But the other 50% you get to spend on something enjoyable.
Oh, like that.
Yeah, so it's like you're rewarding yourself while also still making progress towards your financial goals.
Yeah, it's like you get to have your cake and eat it too.
Exactly. It feels much more sustainable than, just always denying yourself.
Yeah, always feeling deprived.
Exactly. So you're building this positive association with personal finance.
I like it.
But, he's also realistic, He knows that sometimes you get those unexpected expenses.
Oh, yeah, those can really throw a wrench in your budget.
Like a car repair or a medical bill.
Exactly.
And that's where he stresses the importance of having a solid emergency fund.
Yes.
And not just a few $100s. He's talking about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses.
Wow, so you're really covered.
Yeah, you've got that cushion to fall back on.
Okay.
Now let's talk about something that I know a lot of people struggle with: student loans.
Oof, yeah, a big one.
I know I graduated with a ton of student loan debt, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners did too.
Probably.
So Sethi gives some really interesting advice about student loans.
Okay.
And he really focuses on, should you prioritize aggressively paying down those loans?
Mm.
Or should you focus on investing?
Interesting.
So he argues that, a lot of times those student loan interest rates,
Yeah.
They're comparable to what you might expect to get from the stock market.
Right.
So just purely financially, it almost seems like a wash.
Yeah.
But he brings up a couple of factors that often tip the scales in favor of investing.
Okay, I'm listening.
And these are especially important when you're young.
Right.
So the first factor is compound interest.
Ah, yes, that magical force we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So remember how we talked about Smart Sally and Dumb Dan? Well, those early years of investing when you're young, your money has more time to grow.
Right, the longer it has to compound, the better.
Exactly. And the second factor is the tax advantages of retirement accounts.
Oh, yeah. Those can really add up over time.
So things like your 401k and your Roth IRA, those can really amplify your returns.
That's like a bonus just for saving for retirement.
Yeah, so it's not that you should just ignore your student loans,
Right.
but he suggests maybe considering a hybrid approach, put some money towards debt repayment, some money towards investing.
So find a balance that works for you.
Exactly. Consider your risk tolerance, your individual situation.
Right.
Okay, now let's wade into a topic that can be a little more personal, a little more emotionally charged.
Oh, what is it?
Money and relationships.
Ooh, yeah, that could be a tough one.
It can, and money is a huge source of tension in relationships.
Absolutely.
So Sethi really encourages you to just talk about it.
Be open and honest.
Yes, from the very beginning.
And I think a lot of people just avoid those conversations because they're afraid of conflict.
Yeah, it can be uncomfortable.
Oh, sure.
But he gives some really practical tips, Figure out how you're going to split expenses, set shared financial goals, and even talk about those situations where, maybe one person makes a lot more money than the other.
Right. That can be tricky.
Yeah, and he even talks about prenups.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
It is, and he frames them not as, a sign of distrust,
Yeah.
but as a tool to protect both partners' financial interests.
It's about being proactive.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about weddings.
Okay, fun.
Fun, but expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah. And Sethi does not hold back. He calls out those people who, they say they want a simple wedding.
Yeah.
And then they end up spending a fortune.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and the pressure.
It is. You want to have this perfect day.
Right.
But he challenges you to really think about your priorities and to consider those long-term financial implications.
Yeah. And he makes the point that, most people get married in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
So you should theoretically be saving for your wedding for years.
Start early.
Yeah, even if it's a small amount, it can really add up over time.
That makes sense.
And if you're not currently engaged, he says, allocate a percentage of your income to a wedding fund so you're prepared.
Smart.
It's about being proactive.
Yeah.
And not letting those emotions of the moment, kind of derail your long-term goals.
Right. It's your special day,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't put you in debt.
Okay. Another big purchase, buying a car.
Oh, yeah. Another one that can be a little stressful.
It is. And Sethi's advice here is really all about research and negotiation.
Okay.
He says, be skeptical of those car salespeople.
Yeah, they can be pretty persuasive.
So do your research.
Okay.
He recommends using resources like Fighting Chance, which can give you information on dealer costs.
Oh, that's helpful.
And he even gives you negotiation scripts so you can practice beforehand.
It's like having a secret weapon.
It is. So you're going in as an informed consumer.
Great.
You're ready to negotiate.
I like it.
And then once you've got the car, he says, take care of it.
Yeah, maintenance is important.
So you can maximize its resale value.
Smart.
Okay, now let's talk about the big one, buying a house.
Oh, yeah. The biggest purchase most people will ever make.
Probably. And Sethi's approach here is really about being cautious and informed.
Okay.
A lot of people rush into home ownership.
Yeah, it's seen as like this milestone of adulthood.
Right, but Sethi's like, hold on a second, make sure you can actually afford it.
Right.
And he's not just talking about, the mortgage payment.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about all those hidden costs.
Like what kind of hidden costs?
Property taxes, insurance maintenance.
Oh, yeah, those can really add up.
They can't. So he wants you to be aware of all of that.
Okay.
And he even says, renting can be a perfectly valid financial choice.
Yeah, especially if it allows you to save more money or live in a better area.
Exactly. So it's about making the choice that's right for you.
Right.
Not just blindly following some, traditional path.
Got it.
But if you do decide to buy a house, he gives a ton of advice. Having a solid down payment.
Right.
Understanding your credit score, choosing the right mortgage.
So it's all about doing your homework.
It is. It's about making informed decisions, not letting your emotions drive the process.
Oh, okay.
So, we've talked about all these big financial decisions,
Yeah.
and Sethi reminds us that, all that work we put into setting up our financial systems,
Yeah.
it doesn't just stop there.
Oh, so it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing?
No, you've got to maintain it,
Yeah.
contribute regularly to your savings and investments.
Okay.
And most importantly, he says, ignore all that financial noise.
Oh, yeah. There's so much noise out there.
It's everywhere. The news, the internet, everyone's got an opinion on what you should be doing with your money.
Right.
And it's so easy to get distracted.
Yeah, you can start to feel like you're always chasing the next big thing.
Exactly. But Sethi reminds us that the stock market will go up and down. It's
Yeah.
part of the process, and it's so important to stay focused on your goals.
Don't panic sell.
Exactly. Tune out the noise, focus on the signal.
Right.
And he also talks about rebalancing your investments.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
So making sure that your asset allocation stays aligned with your risk tolerance.
Okay.
Okay, let's tackle a topic that a lot of people dread.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Taxes.
Ugh. Yeah, nobody likes taxes.
I know, but Sethi has a really interesting approach here.
Okay.
He debunks some common tax myths,
Mm.
and he really encourages us to be informed.
Right.
Because understanding how taxes work can actually save you a lot of money.
Really?
Yeah, and it's about being proactive, finding those legitimate ways to reduce your tax burden.
So it's not about evading taxes.
No, it's about being smart and strategic.
Okay.
Now, this might seem counterintuitive, but Sethi talks about the importance of selling.
Selling. But I thought investing was all about buying and holding.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think, but Sethi's like, no, you got to be willing to sell too.
Okay, when would you sell?
Well, he encourages you to periodically look at your investments and see if there are any that are underperforming or that maybe don't align with your goals anymore.
Oh, okay. So your needs and goals might change over time.
Exactly. And he says sometimes selling an investment, even if it means taking a loss,
Yeah.
can actually be the smartest financial move
Why is that?
because it frees up that capital.
Right.
So you can reinvest it in something that maybe aligns better with your current situation.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it's about recognizing that, life is not static.
Right.
Things change, and your investments should reflect those changes.
I love that.
Now, Sethi takes this a step further, and he says, imagine your rich life 10 years from now.
Okay, 10 years in the future.
Yeah, think about those potential milestones you might face, those challenges you might encounter.
Like what kind of things?
Career changes, family growth, major purchases, even unexpected life events.
Yeah, life throws a lot of curveballs.
It does. But the point is, you can prepare yourself financially for whatever comes your way.
Okay.
It's about taking that long-term perspective
Right.
and realizing that, a rich life is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
And a crucial part of that journey is giving back.
Oh, giving back. That's important.
Yeah, Sethi really emphasizes the importance of incorporating philanthropy into your financial plan.
Wow.
Because, financial success isn't just about accumulating wealth.
Right.
It's about using your resources to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, making a difference.
Exactly.
Right.
So he encourages you to think about the causes that you care about and find ways to support them.
So whether that's donating money or volunteering your time?
Exactly. Or even starting your own charitable initiative.
Okay.
But he also acknowledges that, financial success can sometimes create a distance between you and those who maybe haven't achieved the same level of financial security.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting point.
It is. And he talks about how, those relationships with friends and family can change.
Yeah.
So he encourages us to be mindful of those differences.
Yeah.
And to find ways to connect with others without making them feel pressured or uncomfortable.
So it's about being sensitive and understanding.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not about flaunting your wealth. It's about recognizing that true wealth encompasses much more than just money.
Right. It's about building a life that's fulfilling for yourself and positive for those around you.
Exactly. All right, we are back for the final part of our deep dive into I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Part 3.
We've learned so much already, from automating our finances to negotiating our salaries, even rethinking what it means to live a rich life.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to unpack a few more of those nuggets of wisdom from Ramit Sethi.
Okay.
One of the things that I thought was so cool about this book
Yeah.
was how open and honest Sethi is about his own personal experiences with money.
Yeah, I think that's what makes his advice feel so relatable.
Totally. It's not just some guru up on a pedestal.
Like he's been there.
Yeah, he gets it. And one story that really stood out to me was his decision to ask his now wife Cass to sign a prenup.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It is. And he's so open about the whole process, the conversations they had,
Yeah.
what money meant to each of them,
Mm.
and even the mistakes he made along the way.
Yeah, he admits to not being totally transparent with Cass about his finances early on.
Yeah, which I thought was really refreshing. Like,
Yeah.
he's not perfect.
Right.
He's just figuring it out like the rest of us.
And I think that makes his advice even more powerful
Totally.
because it shows that it's okay to make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process.
Yeah. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that I think can have a huge impact on your earning potential.
Okay, what's that?
Negotiating your salary.
Yes, the dreaded salary negotiation.
It can feel so intimidating,
Yeah.
especially if you're not, naturally assertive. But Sethi breaks it down step by step.
Okay.
He gives advice on researching comparable salaries, articulating your achievements clearly, even practicing your negotiation script.
So you're ready for anything.
Yeah, he takes all the fear out of it.
I like that.
And he emphasizes that, it's not about being aggressive or demanding.
Right.
It's about having a collaborative conversation,
Mm.
finding that win-win solution.
Okay.
And he even shares a story about one of his readers who used his advice to negotiate a 28% raise.
28%. Wow, that's incredible.
It shows that it really works.
Yeah, if you're willing to put in the effort.
Right. These skills are valuable.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we've come to the heart of Sethi's philosophy, living a rich life.
Yeah, what does it all mean?
Right. It's not just about how much money you have in the bank. It's
Yeah.
about creating a life that you love. It's about those big picture questions, like what? Do you want to start a family? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to retire early?
Big drink.
Big dreams, and it's about defining your own version of success.
Yeah.
And using your financial resources to achieve those goals.
It's about making your money work for you.
Exactly, aligning your money with your values and creating a life that reflects those priorities.
Okay.
So, Sethi reminds us that money is simply a tool.
Right.
It's up to us to decide how we use it.
It's about having that agency.
Yeah. We have the power to shape our own lives.
I like that.
We're not just passive bystanders.
Right.
And, he encourages us to stop waiting for some distant future, to start living our rich lives today.
Right here, right now.
Exactly. Make the most of this moment.
Soaking it all in.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into I Will Teach You to Be Rich, I'm curious, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you?
Well, I think one of the most important things is this idea of creating systems.
Systems.
Yeah, like automating your finances,
Yeah.
setting up those good habits so that your money is kind of working for you even when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I also really appreciate Sethi's emphasis on investing early and often.
Yeah, time is your greatest asset.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to negotiate.
Yes.
Whether it's your salary or your bank fees, you have the power to advocate for yourself.
I love that. And, beyond just the financial tips, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me
Yeah.
is this idea of redefining what it means to live a rich life.
Yeah. It's not just about money.
No, it's about experiences, relationships, purpose.
Living a life that feels meaningful.
Yeah. And Sethi leaves us with this powerful question.
What's that?
Is there an underperforming asset in your life?
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be a financial asset.
Okay.
It could be a relationship, a job, a habit,
Interesting.
anything that's holding you back from living your richest life.
Yeah. What are you holding on to that's no longer serving you?
Exactly what needs to be reevaluated.
It's a good question to ask yourself.
It is, and I think that's the real power of this book. It's not just about managing money, it's about designing a life that you love.
A life that's rich in every sense of the word.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I feel like we learned a lot.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners did too.
I hope so.
So until next time, keep diving deep.